Welcome to episode 1 of Matire Gemi, a bi-weekly podcast where we help you learn about your Agikuyu culture, history, and heritage in English and in a fun, light-hearted way. I'm Jeriwa Diho, your anchor, and I'm here with Wayaki Wageshaga, your cultural enthusiast who continues to immerse himself in learning the ways of our ancestors. Now, today we'll be talking about the Agikuyu origin story. But we'll go beyond the mythical and we'll help you connect the dots between the creation story and your own unique and personal identity as a Mogikuyu. Ooh, is your curiosity piqued yet, Wayaki?
Absolutely, it is.
Okay, so why don't you start by telling us the brief story of your own Agikuyu ancestral lineage? So as you guys listen to Wayaki tell his story, ask yourself this question. Can I tell the story of my lineage? And if you can't, don't worry, because by the end of this podcast, you'll have the knowledge and the tools that you need to gather your own story. So I'm so excited to hear yours, Wayaki. So tell us, what is your story of your ancestral lineage?
That's a very good question, Jerry. And I want to go and start. I really won't start 5 generations or 6 generations. I'll start from Gikuyu and Mombi.
Okay.
So when Gikuyu and Mombi had 10 daughters, and the daughter that I am from, my lineage is Jerry.
Okay.
Or the Mohirega called Ashera.
So what is Mohirega?
So Mohirega is your clan.
Oh.
So that's the translation for clan. And I know we need to translate most of the Kikuyu words that we do. But I'll start there and start with our father Gikuyu and our mother Mombi, who gave birth to several children, several daughters. And the daughter that my lineage comes from is Jerry, which happens to be your name. How coincidental.
It's a good thing.
But so the many generations passed before and came to a man called Hinga, who gave birth to Wayaki Wahinga. And after Wayaki Wahinga had, I believe he had 8 wives. And his last wife was called Shania. She gave birth to a son called Hinga, who she was naming Wayaki Wahinga's dad. Okay. And Hinga gave birth to Wayaki. And Wayaki is my grandfather, who I am named after. So Wayaki gave birth to Geshanga. Geshanga gave birth to me.
Okay.
That's my story.
I love it. That's a great story of your lineage, right?
Absolutely.
So guys, did you pick that up? Can you tell that story about yourself, right? And I want to share mine too as that second example. But before I do that, Wayaki, why is it so important for us to know our lineage as part of our ancestral story, as part of the creation story of the Agikuyu?
So it's very important to know your lineage, knowing where you came from, because it gives you an identity. It makes you know where you're from. Apart from that, I think so. I tell this story to some of my friends. Mm-hmm. When I was in primary school in Hospital Hill, which is a primary school that I went to. I would come home and tell my dad, yo, this is my best friend. His name is Mohea or Karanja or Michael. And he would ask me, who is his dad? Who is his mom? Like, where are they from? And and he would ask me that constantly. And I used to get so bored of it, you know?
Right?
But back in the day, when you introduce yourself, you would identify yourself as such and such of such and such clan, of such and such family, right? And especially in the issues of marriage and other things, like maybe there was family issues with land, it would be able to identify where you're from and therefore know whether you are somebody that they could relate with or not. If it was a girl that you had mentioned she's from this tribe or that this Mohirega or that Mohirega, your dad could easily tell you that's your relative, and you need to
Can't marry
stop.
them.
You need to stay away.
Yeah, I love that.
So that's very important, and we'll talk about introduction and how to introduce yourself.
Yeah.
And the only way you can introduce yourself is if you know
Your
your
Mohirega.
lineage.
Yes, I love that, in your lineage. So guys, continue to listen to this, and I'm going to share mine. And again, ask yourself that question. And once we're done with this, we'll start at the very beginning with the mythical creation story, right? So I'll tell you my ancestry and think about yours and start to draft yours down. So I was born of the Kehara lineage, meaning De Barea Kehara, and I'm a Mojiro. You know, my lineage story really started with Moga, and he was a Metume, right? You know, which is the Agikoyos from the eastern part of the Agikoyo lands, right? Which is like the Meru area. Now, Moga actually detected a bad spell on his family, right? He started losing wives, children, livestock, and harvest. And at that time, he did what a lot of Agikoyo did. He decided to migrate and to leave the evil. So Moga then had only one son, and that son was Kehara. And during that great migration, Moga actually died. And Kehara continued to lead the epic journey. And eventually they arrived at the Dorobo land, right? And he conquered the Dorobo in that area. Hence, he renamed the area after himself, which is what's called Kehara in Kiambu. Now, Kehara's first son was also Moga, and his second son was Gashie. Let me divert a little bit because people know about Gashie and a lot of the issues in Gashie, right?
I do.
So Gashie was a legend, right? He was a belligerent warrior, right? And he actually, story says that he cut off his finger to declare war on the advancing colonialists. And he's the reason that the colonialists were not able to actually capture Gashie to be part of Nairobi. So if you look at the map of Nairobi and Kiambu, you'll see that Gashie is like a peninsula, right? That really jets in deep into Nairobi, and that's because of Gashie. But I digress, and I'll say one last thing, right? So Gashie actually had no shadow, meaning Dare Keruru. Did I pronounce that right?
No, it's Keruru.
Keruru.
At least now people know that you're Kikuyu.
It's just that this was a new word. Otherwise, my Kyuk is on point, you know? But it also means that he was barren, but he still had many wives because he was a wealthy man back then, and he adopted a lot of children. But let's go back to my specific lineage, which is the first son, his brother, which was Moga. Now, Moga begat Goge, and Goge begat Moga, his first son. That first son, Moga, begat my grandfather, Diho, also known as Mwaura, who then begat my dad, Moga, who then begat me, Jerry. So that's my family tree. So let me ask you this question, right? Let's start at the beginning because we want to connect the origin story of the Agikoyo to your personal origin story or your lineage. So let's start with, what is the origin story of the Agikoyo?
That's a good question, Jerry. And your lineage story is fabulous. It sounds like a movie.
It kind of is, right?
It's especially with the story of Gashie.
Mm-hmm. And he was a giant of a man.
So I will tell you, when I was growing up, and sorry to digress, but when I was growing up, going to Gashie was not encouraged, especially at night.
Ouch!
I'm serious. It was
but the
one of the
women
most
were beautiful.
I don't know about that because I never went there. But yeah, I just wanted to say that my dad used to tell me Gashie is not a place to play with.
Oh man,
it's true. I mean, I ask a lot of people.
Just tell your dad to expect a phone call from me.
His number is 0722. That's his number. Anyway, so I'll start with the story of the Agikoyo. So if you look at the migration of the Bantus if you have done a study of geography and history, a lot has been written about the migration of Bantus, Kushites, Nilotes, all over Africa, right? And so Bantus have settled in East and Central Africa and even Southern Africa. And so if you want to look at studies on Bantu migration, you can kind of understand how Bantus came to East Africa.
Okay.
But from oral history, we have learned that the Agikoyo came their ancestral roots are from a man called Gikuyu and a woman called Mombi. And so Gikuyu comes from the word Mokoyo, which is a fig tree.
Huh, I did not know that.
So Gikuyu is like something, a big fig tree.
Okay.
That's what it means.
Really?
Yes.
So the Agikuyu means a big fig tree.
Big fig tree.
I
yeah.
just learned something today.
And Mobi, Mobi literally means creator. So she's the, and that's why we call our tribe Nyobaya Mobi, the house of Mombi, because Mombi is the one. If it wasn't for her, Gikuyu could not have given birth.
Correct.
Obviously.
Correct.
So she is the creator of the tribe.
Right.
And that's why we call her the mother of the tribe.
I love it. And she created 9 kids.
She did not. There's a common misconception that she had 9 children. She actually had 10.
Really?
Yes.
So wait. Okay. Okay, you gotta list them out for me, because every time I've read it or researched or Googled, the Agikuyu, and the story that was passed down to us was that Gikuyu and Mobi had 9 daughters, which are the 9 Mohiregas. So talk through that with us.
So there's a common misconception, because some of the early history books that were written, and actually I have one right here, the book by LSB Leakey called The Southern Kikuyu Before 1903. This book was written in 1937, and it's a series of books. They talk about the Agikuyu having 9 daughters. And the reason is the colonialists, obviously, who were learning Kikuyu, did not understand how Kikuyu speak in terms of counting.
Huh.
So the Kikuyus say Gikuyu and Mombi had 10 daughters, but they don't say Ikomi. Ikomi stands for 10, right? They say Keda Moyoru. So, which means 9 full. Keda is 9, Moyoru is full. So, and the reason for that is, and there's several different reasons why. So the first reason that I have learned is the Agikuyu never counted children or livestock in finite numbers.
Why not?
So obviously children and livestock were considered great wealth, or are considered great wealth. If you're Agikuyu, you should consider, if you have livestock or children, great wealth. And I'll give you a good analogy. So if you have $10 million in the bank, right? And I asked you, Jerry, how much money do you have? What would you say if you are a humble person?
I have enough.
You have enough.
Yeah.
Or I'm good. I can pay my bills.
Right.
You could say something like that, right?
Correct.
So the Agikuyu never ever wanted to sound like they were bragging, because any wealth that they had gotten was considered a gift of God. So they would never say, I have 10 children or I have 100 goats. And in fact, even in the Rurashio ceremony, or when they're counting the goats for Rurashio, they never say we need 100 goats, or we're going to pay 100 goats, or we're going to pay 10 goats or 5 goats. They never say that.
Okay.
They never count them in even numbers or finite numbers, because that's not how the Agikuyu used to count.
So this is really fascinating to me. So Agikuyu and Mobi had Keda Moyoru children.
Yes.
Okay, so continue that story for us.
And you will never hear any person who is giving the story, especially the people who give cultural instruction, they never say 10, they say Keda Moyoru.
That's beautiful. That's so good to know. So it just means that when our oral history was recorded by Leakey, right, there was an error because he did not fully understand our culture.
Absolutely. And he did understand a lot of our culture, but he made that mistake in not enumerating correctly, because he didn't understand what Keda Moyoru means.
Beautiful. So now let's go on to to continue the creation story.
Okay, so what happened is, it is so said that Gikuyu came down from Mount Kenya and came down to a place called Mukuru Ewa Nyagathaga. So that's where he met Mobi. She was already there. So he met her there, and they became man and wife.
Okay.
And after becoming man and wife, they got 10 children. Keda Moyeru.
Yes.
So I'll list the daughters in order.
Okay.
So Wajiro.
She was the oldest.
Wajiro was the oldest.
Okay.
So Wajiro, the name Jiro is dark or black. And so apparently she was born when she was very dark.
She was a black beauty.
She was dark and lovely.
Yeah, dark and lovely. Okay.
So she's the mother of the clan or the Moherega of the Ajiro. And so they are the leaders of they are the first. How do I put this in perspective? So she's in Kikuyu we say Irigidadi. Irigidadi means the firstborn. And it's usually the firstborn son, but because Gikuyu and Mombi did not have any sons, she became the Irigidadi.
Makes sense. Okay.
Then we'll go to the secondborn was...
Before we do that, can we talk about what she was known for, the Ajiro?
So the Ajiro generally are known to be very generous and they're very wealthy. So they were good in farming. They had a lot of cows and goats, and they were very generous.
Okay.
That's, at least from what I've heard, that's what they're known for.
Just to remind everybody, I'm a Mojiro.
Wow.
So let me go look for my cows.
No, and that's another thing is Ajiro, they're also known to be medicine men and women. So I know you're really interested in herbal medicine.
Yeah, I've cured a lot of your issues.
Wow.
With my herbs.
By sending me to Amazon to buy some herbs? Okay. But yeah, Ajiro are known for being medicine men and women, having that wisdom in their lineage.
Beautiful. Then who was the second daughter?
The second daughter was Waboi. And I'll go in no particular order, but Waboi was a secondborn for sure. And in Kikuyu culture, the Irigidadi is usually very important. So that's why we have to always name Wajiro first.
And then the rest you can mix them up.
We'll definitely talk about the last one.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
Which is most of the stories told about the 9 daughters leave out the 10th
daughter, and she deserves a spot.
She does deserve a spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not for anything good she did, but no judgment.
Okay.
So we'll go with
number 2.
Number 2 is Waboi, and that's the mother of the Moherega, Aboi. And so Aboi are 2 things that they're known for. They're known to be blessed with leadership, and so even the current leader of Kenya is a Moboi.
Interesting. So historically, the Abois were probably part of the the circle of elders, right? Because they're leaders, you know?
Yes, but what I mean is they were given the gift of leadership.
Got it. The natural gift from God.
Gift for leadership, for leading men, leading Itora or a society or a village. They were given that natural gift.
I see they're great leaders. Okay.
Yes. So that's one of the things that they are known for. And then another thing is they don't forget things. So if you know any Moboi and you owe them money,
pay it right away.
They're never gonna forget that.
Okay, great.
So
the next daughter
was Wajiko. And Wajiko is called Wajiko, and one of the reasons these names came the way we are pronouncing them or we say them is because Gikuyu and Mombi were naming them based on their characteristics, their what they were known for. Okay. So that's how they named them.
Their natural gifts.
Yeah, and so you can't naming. In the Agikuyu, and we'll talk about naming in another podcast for sure, in terms of how you name your children and how that process happens. But at that time, you can't think of Gikuyu and Mombi as being in a hospital and thinking, hey, what are we going to name our baby?
Right.
No, it was different. It was a different time.
Okay.
And so that's just a side note. But I want you to know that they were naming them based on their characteristics and how they were born. So that's how they did that.
Yeah, and I'm loving it so much. So as everybody's listening, I'm actually hoping that they're starting to, if they don't know, ask themselves and jot down the fact that they need to know what their mohirega is, right?
Yes.
Of the 10, right? So right now we've done number 3. So what is, who was the fourth daughter or a fourth daughter?
So before we go to the fourth daughter,
Okay.
Agashiko, who come from Wajiko, were known to be gossipers.
Really?
They were known to have Juko. That's why she was called Wajiko.
Or maybe they're great storytellers.
It could be. It could be. You could possibly be Agashiko.
No comment. Keep going. My mouth is ajar.
And okay, so you actually brought an interesting point before I go on. So you could be called, so in today's society, if you don't know your mohirega and you're called Jerry or you're called Wagoi or Wajiko, you might assume that that's your mohirega, but that is not your mohirega.
Correct, because I'm Jerry and I'm a Mojiro.
Yeah, so it could be coincidentally, but you need to find out what your mohirega is.
Right.
And your mohirega is not tied to your actual name.
Yes, that's such a good point.
So I want to make that clear that, when you hear this and you assume that your name is Jerry, so you're a Moshera, that is not correct.
Okay, great. So is Jerry, who's the next daughter?
The next daughter is Jerry, actually.
Hey.
Or Wajeri, who is the mother of the Ashera.
Okay.
So it's told that Moshera, who is a member of the Ashera clan, Ashera ga namodowe na kanyamo. Like basically they don't associate themselves with people who are poor.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of their main characteristic. They try to keep they're good with money.
I think that's brilliant because it means that they're discerning. And really, to make it very modernized, you really want to control your circle because your circle really impacts your life and the direction of your life.
Absolutely.
So she sounds like she was very discerning.
Yeah, she was discerning on people's characteristics and their characters.
Nice. Okay.
So the next daughter was Wagare. So Wagare comes from, and there's differing stories on mythical stories on why the name Wagare is the way it is. But the most interesting one is she was very mean.
Oh.
So in Kikuyu we say Niare no Okare. So Okare is being like kind of mean and selfish.
Okay.
So basically, if you go to a Mogare's house, especially if it's a woman cooking, and she doesn't want you to eat the food, they say she would keep adding water into the pot.
That's a terrible
to
story.
say, oh, the food is not ready. It's time for you to go.
That's a terrible story. So let's talk about her strengths. Let's talk about Wagare's strengths.
I'm sure she had her strengths, but I think the highlight is the adding water into the pot to make sure the food keeps cooking.
Okay, I mean it makes sense, but if I was to literally kind of like, and analyze Wagare, I would say that she was good at saving. She was very aware that you have to manage what you have well, right? So she just didn't throw it all out there. She'd make a good wife because she would keep your wealth in the family.
So what you're saying is people who are good savers are mean.
That's not what I'm saying. Who's the next daughter?
Okay, so the next daughter is Nyabura. And Nyabura is very interesting because they say she was born when it was raining. And that's why she was called Nyabura, and she's the mother of the clan Abura. And or Edaga, which is in modern Kikuyu culture, Muedaga is a person who belongs to the Nyabura or Abura clan.
Okay.
And so they were known for spiritual powers. So they could make it rain.
Nice.
like make it rain. Like they could, it's told that they could call on the rain, on rain, and it would rain as they called it.
That's great. Really super spiritual powers.
The spiritual powers that, for sure, even today, the people who are Edaga, they have that power. They maybe just don't know about it.
That's beautiful. Okay.
So it's actually interesting that, and this is maybe something we can discuss later, but, you know, they are, one of their characteristics is they are told, it's said, and you know I'm translating in Kikuyu, so sometimes it doesn't come off as it sounds in Kikuyu. But I'll say it in Kikuyu, then I'll say it in English. So, Merago matogaga no tuko. So it literally means is they would if you had a problem and you would go see them, who they were the agos of, and ago means like a seer, a diviner, a mystic. If you went and saw them and they solved your problem, then you would, most of them, you would bring them their payment at night, and then in the morning people would wake up and they would find cows and goats in their. So that's why the utoga no tuko, which means getting rich at night means.
Okay.
But this is the Mohiriga that has the most spiritual powers.
Beautiful.
And it's unfortunate because when colonialism happened, these spiritual powers were demonized, and they, from having spiritual powers, they were called witch doctors, witches, and so that really affected their future generations of people of seers and mystics and diviners who had those spiritual powers.
Yeah, they kept them down. And you know, it's interesting when you tie it to colonization, because you're right. You know, in our cultures, we demonize the idea of a traditional, an individual having spiritual powers. And yet, when we think about Christianity, we celebrate the spiritual powers of Jesus. We celebrate the spiritual powers of, you know, different other leaders in the Bible. So it's actually quite interesting. So it's a fantastic question. Why do we demonize spiritual powers of our own ancestors, but we then celebrate those same spiritual powers in Allah, in Jesus? Isn't that why?
And we shouldn't go as far as Allah or Jesus. We have many pastors who say that they can heal, and I'm sure some of them maybe have healing powers, but we celebrate those, but then we condemn our traditional medicine men and women and call them witches, and they're performing witchcraft, which is really what that was a narrative that was pushed
onto us by the colonialist.
Yeah. And so another thing that affected, and I'll speak a bit more about the Edaga, is it affected their relationships with other clans. And so in many households, including my own household, there is it is said that you should not marry a Muidaga. And if you do marry a Muidaga, something terrible may happen to you. And I know a lot of Kikuyus who know about this can relate to this. And I think part of it is because they were demonized, because they were practicing, you know, strong medicine, or there were seers, diviners.
Yeah.
And so it affected especially marriages between them and other clans.
Yeah, it makes me sad, and I think maybe the message I'm taking from this is that just kind of almost a continuation from last week's podcast, which is allow the two to coexist. You can choose a religion, right, if you want to, Christianity, Islam, any religion, Buddhism, but you can also honor, right, the powers and the strengths of our own ancestors. There is nothing that says you can't have both. So that's really what I'm taking from that, and God bless the Edaga. So who was the next daughter?
Next daughter was Waithira or Wageshi. And so she's called Waithira because Waithira is like to be really smooth. Like they were smooth talkers. They and she's the mother of the clan Aithirado or Ageshi. So they were really smooth in how they operated.
Nice.
Yeah, they were just like cool cats.
Yeah.
Literally like a cool cat.
Okay. Okay.
So the next daughter was Wairimo.
Uh-huh.
And Wairimo, if you think about the word Irimo, it's like an ogre, like something really big and like a big giant ogre with 3 eyes. And when Kikuyu children were growing up, they would be told about this. There would be folktales about this Irimo that would eat them if they went to the forest. And, those stories were told to be able to keep children playing within, a certain border and not to go and out. And maybe, so the word Irimo means ogre, right?
Okay.
In a folktale sense. And so Wairimo was born she was like the biggest baby.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
She was like the biggest baby. And that's why she was called Wairimo.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Great. So that's daughter number. How many more do we have?
We have 2 more daughters.
Okay. Who's daughter number 8?
Number 9.
Okay, 9. That's right. Because we have 10. I need to put that in my mind. Uh-huh.
Yes. So the 9th daughter was Wagoi. And actually Wagoi is my sister's name too.
But it has nothing to do with Muhiriga.
Muhiriga, absolutely, because we are Ashera. Mm-hmm. And actually, before I talk about Agoi, your Muhiriga comes from your father.
Okay.
That's very, very important.
Okay.
So your father is the one who you follow their clan, whether you're a girl or boy. Whatever your dad's Muhiriga is, that whatever his clan is the clan you belong to.
Got it.
Just to make that clear.
Okay.
So Wagoi comes from, Wagoi, the word Wagoi or the name Wagoi comes from the word Wokoya, which is to sing. Mm-hmm. And so if you think about any musician in Kenya, many of the good prominent musicians in Kenya, and in fact, Motigaire, Joseph Kamaro, who recently passed away, may he rest in peace, was a Mogoi. Uh-huh. They're the ones who used to lead all the traditional dances, all the traditional singing. They had the gift of song.
Wow, that's so powerful to think that, especially the connection you just made, that a lot of our Kikuyu singers happened to be of this Muhiriga. That's amazing.
Many of them, you can identify them. They do identify as Agoi.
That's interesting because it really does tell us that a lot of our innate powers, we may find some of our innate strengths, talents, or powers really are connected to your Muhiriga. And it's really fascinating to then ask that question, which could start connecting some dots for you.
Absolutely. And you have to connect the dots with if you have any sort of wisdom or talent that you noticed within yourself, if you're an artist, if you are a lawyer, if you're a doctor, I'm sure there are a lot of doctors in who come from some of these clans that had that talent.
Nice.
So I think people can connect the dots once they learn who they are. They can be able to connect the dots.
Okay, I can't control myself. Who is the 10th daughter?
Okay. So the 10th daughter is called Wamoyo. And so Wamoyo, or Warigia means, Korigia is to be last.
Yeah.
So people call her Warigia too, but she was called Wamoyo, and the reason she was called Wamoyo is that there's a tree called Mukoyo. Mm-hmm. It has the fruits are called moyo, or goyo, or moyo. So that's why they called her Wamoyo, because she liked those fruits.
Oh, okay.
And so Wamoyo, and it's debatable, and there's different opinions on this story, but it is said that, and so let me go back to, so before I talk about Wamoyo, let me go back to how once Gikoy and Mubi had these daughters and they became of age, how did they get husbands?
Okay, yeah, that's a good point.
Because usually, so Wamoyo was very young when Wajiro and Wabui and all
Everybody
the 9 daughters
Uh-huh.
decided that they wanted to get married.
Okay.
So Wajiro went up to Gikoyo and she was like, we as guys are ready to get married. We are of age.
Uh-huh.
and so why are you laughing?
I don't know. Okay, uh-huh.
And
I mean, I'm just like excited for them that they were ready.
They're ready
They were
to get
like,
married,
it's
right?
time. Uh-huh.
Yeah, so it so happened that Gikoyo, being a man of God and being holy, he prayed and asked for direction because he was like, I don't know where you guys are gonna get husbands, but I'm gonna have a
chat with God.
I'm gonna talk with God, and then it said that he was told to perform a sacrifice. So a traditional ceremony, which we call igogona. So he had an igogona where he sacrificed one of his livestock, one of his goimas for a goima is a goat, and the next day 9 men appeared.
Huh.
So that's the story that is told, right?
Okay.
And so you can look at it from that sense where it could be that these 9 men came from another town or another neighborhood.
Exactly.
But basically that story is told to show that the Agikuyu would pray and things would work out for them.
Okay.
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 So they got the 9 daughters. Wamoyo was too young to be married at the time.
Okay.
And so from Wajiro all the way to Wagoi, they got their husbands. And the fun fact is, I saw this, or I've heard this. It says that each of them chose the man of appropriate height.
Really?
So Kikuyu mamas didn't start being petty from juicy.
That's terrible. That's really terrible, but I gotta tell you a story my dad told me 2 days ago. Mm-hmm. So he was telling me about my mom's side of the family. Mm-hmm. Not my mom, my shosho, his mother. They are Dorobos originally. Mm-hmm. And he was telling me that the one who married Jerry, one of my ancestrals, not my grandma, right? Like ancestrally, was a really short man.
Okay.
But my ancestral mom, lineage-wise, she was really tall and beautiful.
Just as tall as you?
I don't know. I'm thinking.
Possibly, yeah.
Possibly.
Yeah, because you're 6'7".
Yeah, 6'7". It's a good height. Anyway, so that's interesting. Okay.
So yeah, it's told that they all were like, I want a man of appropriate height, and I heard that and I read that and I was like, really?
It's not petty. That's important.
I think it is. I'm just making fun. And don't crucify me for that.
Mm-hmm. You'll be crucified later. Let's just move on.
Okay, so at this time when they get married, they get children, they build their own homesteads around, and it so happens that one day, in one of the initiation, so the Kikuyu started the process of initiating boys and girls, and so the son of Wajiro, when he was going through the process of initiation, after going through the process, he ran away because he was scared.
Okay.
So and so when that issue, because it was sort of like a bad omen to run away from the initiation process. Mm-hmm. So when that matter was deliberated, it was decided that this grandson of Gikoyo would go and stay with Gikoyo in his Vigira, which is the man's house in Kikuyu. Mm-hmm. And so what happened is, as he's staying with his grandfather, so he's going to his grandmother's hut to get food and all that. and he starts meeting with Wamoyo. And Wamoyo is his auntie.
Right.
But they get into a relationship.
Oh. Now Wamoyo is a 10th daughter. 10th daughter,
yeah.
Gets into a relationship with her nephew.
And so they sort of were kind of cast out of the home. And I think, in my opinion, I don't quote me as saying this as fact. I think that's why the story of Wamoyo is sort of under wraps.
That explains it, because we all know of the 9 daughters, and now when you connect the leaky story, but also the fact that maybe nobody even told him the story of Wamoyo, right?
Yeah.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Because if you think about it seriously, and it is still something, you can't be in a relationship with your auntie.
Right.
That's incest.
Yeah.
So that's what happened, and it caused them to be cast out
of the family. Oh,
because it was something forbidden, and it was odomogirie. Odomogirie becomes mogiro. So if you hear of the word mogiro, is something that our culture has forbidden.
I think this is really great, and it's so good to learn about the 10 daughters. And again, for everybody to go back and Keda Moyuru, and for everybody to go back and remember that just because you have a certain name or a certain name in your family doesn't make that your Mohiriga. So that's beautiful, and the way you've connected the creation story with the 9 daughters to then your individual personal story is fantastic. So what's next here in terms of knowing your own personal story? Where do you go from here? How do you craft your own lineage?
That's a very important question. So for me, my personal lineage, I want to give a lot of credit to one of my relatives. His name is Joroge Waregero. He actually wrote a book and actually drew a family tree of my family for, I think, six or 7 generations. And it's really important for anyone who wants to find out about themselves. If you think about it, you still have relatives in Kenya who know about your family, who know about your relatives. The first thing you should do is find out what Mohiriga you are.
Yes.
That is absolutely critical.
On your dad's side. On
your dad's side, yeah. Your Mohiriga from your dad's side. And, there's nuances to this because there's some children who don't have fathers, and it becomes more complicated with that. So if you don't have a father, for example, or unfortunately, the right procedure is your mother's brother becomes your father.
Okay.
So, and for him to become your father, there's processes and procedures that need to be done for that to happen.
Rituals, okay.
Yeah.
So as we're going through that process and people are going back, and I have to say that I agree that it's so important for our generation to find out our family tree, our lineage, right? For me, I did it through my father. My father drew it out for me and I learned it. But the reason it's so important is because it may not be important to you now, right? But it may turn out to be very important to you later. Or your children may ask you a lot of questions, or your children's children. Mm-hmm. If you think about today and what people are doing to understand their ancestral history, they have to go to ancestry.com. Right? Mm-hmm. So you really want to avoid that. And here's the thing I dislike to say, right? Which is ultimately our parents' generation will pass on, much like we'll pass on. And you just don't want to have the regret of not having asked these questions while somebody within your family could have asked them. So are there like certain questions, maybe 3 questions, certain tools that you would encourage someone to follow to help them really carve out this story?
Yeah, absolutely. So you should ask, what is my Mohiriga? What is my Nyoba? And for men, you should ask, what is your Rikareawadani? So Rikareawadani is what is your so Rika means age set. Reawadani means ruling. So what's your ruling age set? And so the Kikuyus have always had ruling age set,
Okay.
which is a ruling generation every 35 to 40 years. That used to change hands every 35 to 40 years, where young men then, as they become older, then the leadership of the tribe would be turned over to them.
Okay, which one is yours? What's yours?
Mine is Mwagi.
Mwagi, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so for a man, the Rika, Reawadhani, there's two Rikas. There's the Rika which you are initiated in, which usually coincides with like a certain thing that would happen that year. So you have Rikas like Rika Rea Mtongwe, when the Mtongwe ferry drowned. So they name them out after
Events.
after events, certain events or elections or things like that happened in Kenya,
Okay.
right? But Rika Reawadhani is very important because it identifies you with what ruling generation is.
Right.
And right now there's currently two.
Yeah.
There's Mwagi and there's Minor. So like my dad is Minor, my grandfather was Mwangi. So all my ancestors who are named like me were Mwangis.
I see.
And let me not say that, because there are other ruling generations that came before Maina and Mwangi, which we can talk about in another podcast, like Demi, Madhavi, Iragi. So Iragi was very interesting because it comes from the word Kurega. And Kurega, what happened is they refused to be ruled by women.
Oh, you know what? That's a very important podcast, because I think we really need to talk about feminism, or the strength of a woman, and the Kikuyu culture. But before we do that, so let's go back to what you were talking about before, which was, I think you should know your body, because your name doesn't always highlight your body.
It doesn't.
Like I'm Baria Kehara, so, right? So my name doesn't always highlight it. You've also said we need to know your Mohirega, which is tied to the 10, I shouldn't say 10, but we'll say 10, the 10 daughters, right? And then after that, you should find out, if you're a man, you should find out your Rikaria Mwadhani. Rikaria Wadhani. Okay,
Yeah.
What else should you find out?
I do think you need to find out, and this would be a project to do. You need to draw your own family tree. I think that's what would crystallize your lineage.
Yeah.
I think that's really it, in my opinion.
You're right. And the only way to do that is to sit down with people and literally ask questions and start to draw it.
Absolutely.
And go back as far as you can. And as you're doing that, see if you can find out the stories. Like the way I was telling you the story of Rashie. The way I told you the story of Mogai and how he left, the eastern part of the Agikuyu and migrated all the way to what's called Kehara now, which was a hard-headed, or which was a Dorobo land, right? So try and find the stories, and the only way the stories will come is if you start to write it down, right? So maybe, what would be cool, I think, is if we had a couple of people kind of write down their story, right? And maybe send us a recording of it. What do you think?
I think that would be awesome. So I think you should, for those who are listening, send an email to matire.gemi@gmail.com with your introduction.
Yeah.
With your introduction in Kikuyu, where you say, Jitagwa wa yakiwahi wa Agishaga, de Moshera, de wa Barea Higa, de Rikaria Wadhani de wa Mwagi. Na nyumete itora retagwo Gikuyu.
What is Itora?
Itora is like village.
Beautiful.
So where are you from?
Yeah.
Because you're not from Nairobi.
Yeah.
Many people are born in Nairobi.
That's not where you're from.
Or Mombasa, but that's not really where you're from.
I love this.
So find out where you're from.
Yes. I love this script, and I think we're going to put it on the Facebook page, right? So that when people want a reminder, kind of like the script, they can go and be able to craft that. And guys, send us an email, matire.gemi@gmail.com with your recording, and we'll pick a few lucky ones over that few podcasts, and we're going to highlight those. We're actually going to play your story. Thank you.
Thank you. So dramatic.
I know.
Stop it.
I can't help myself. Thank you so much, Wayaki, for this session. I've really enjoyed myself, and I think that the discussion was rich and full of so much insight, right? And I have to say, thank you also for the digestives and the coffee and the water this time. My throat was not too dry, so it felt good.
You're welcome.
So before I tell you about next week's episode, I really want to ask you for your help. And, we're a new podcast. This is really our first episode. So if you enjoyed the podcast, help us by spreading the word. Share this podcast with your friends, your family, and anybody you think would be interested in learning more about the Agikuyu history, culture, and heritage. And also follow us on social media. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, which is where we'll be providing you with a lot of updates. And I have to say, I'm so grateful for the feedback that we received from you. It was overwhelming and we loved it. So Wayaki, why don't you tell us what next week's episode is going to be about?
So next week's episode is going to be about when a child is born, what happens when a child is born from a traditional perspective. The naming conventions of children, how you name children in our culture, and also something that ties in back to the name of our podcast, Gemi. So we're going to discuss Gemi and what they mean.
So we'll dig deeper into the Gemi. I love that. And guys, there's a few people we really have to thank. I think the first people that we have to thank are our parents. In particular, my dad, I know I asked him so many questions and he continues to be such a rich source of my history and insight. Who would you like to thank on your end?
I'd definitely like to thank my parents. When they listened to the first episode 0, they told me that I had done a good job, and we were on the phone talking about it for more than an hour.
I love that. Talking about length of time, right? Mm-hmm. I really want to thank Ali Badawi, right? So he is a podcaster, perhaps I'll call him a media personality in Washington, D.C. And he also spent over 2.5 hours mentoring me and giving me feedback to help make sure that episode 1 is improved. We also want to thank Njenga Giggs, one of our friends. He's a producer here in Houston, and he created the unique sound that you hear at the beginning and at the end. And he did a lot of sound work for us. Is there anybody I'm forgetting to thank, Wayaki?
So me personally, I'd like to thank mokoyo.wordpress.com. So he provides a lot of storytelling about our culture, and I've learned a lot from that blog. And I'd also like to thank Godfrey Morioki, who wrote the book A History of the Kikuyu, 1500 to 1900. This is a book that is kind of rare, but you can find it on Amazon. I will include the link in the description. I learned a lot from that book as well, so I'd like to give some shout out to him.
Beautiful. And finally, to all of you, the listeners, we couldn't be here without you. I'll tell you, I believe, had over 750 listens to episode 0 in a matter of 4 or 5 days. That means that you shared it, and we received so much feedback for you. Thank you for sharpening us. We are so grateful. So I'm going to close out this podcast and say, see you in a couple of weeks.